The dining table was too perfect. Everything placed exactly where it should be. The plates aligned, the glasses polished, the food arranged like something out of a magazine. And yet, the atmosphere felt wrong, too tight, too controlled, like something unpleasant was waiting for the right moment to surface. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, my hands resting gently in my lap, my posture straight, my expression neutral. I had learned long ago that in rooms like this, silence is not weakness. It is positioning. So, my mother-in-law said, her voice light but edged with something sharper underneath. How is your little hobby going? There it was, right on time, not direct enough to sound cruel, but clear enough to land. I looked up slowly, met her eyes. It is going well, I said calmly. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. I see, she replied. Still no real job then. It's never gone. A small laugh followed. Soft, polite, cruel. My husband did not say anything. He never did in moments like this. That was part of the pattern. Silence, avoidance, distance. Have you ever been in a room where people slowly chip away at you while pretending it is normal conversation? If you have ever felt that, comment number 1 below. I read every single one. I just think, she continued, cutting a piece of food carefully, that at some point, people need to grow up. A pause, subtle, deliberate, and contribute. There it was again. That word, contribute, measured in money, in visibility, in something they could understand. I nodded slightly, not agreeing, not disagreeing, just acknowledging, because reacting would only feed the dynamic, and I was done feeding it. Across the table, my father-in-law leaned back. You know, he said, our son works very hard. My husband shifted slightly, uncomfortable, but still silent. I do know, I said. And what do you do? He asked, looking directly at me now. The question was simple, but loaded, because it was not curiosity. It was challenge. I manage things, I said. That was enough. For me, but not for them. My mother-in-law smiled again. That same smile, controlled, dismissive. Yes, she said. We have noticed. A few seconds passed. Then she added, but managing nothing is still nothing. Silence. Thicker now. More obvious. This was no longer subtle. This was intentional. I placed my fork down gently. Every movement precise. I understand your concern, I said. Calm. Measured. But you do not understand my work. That was the first shift. Small, but real. My husband finally spoke. You have never explained it, he said. His tone was neutral, but there was something underneath. Doubt. That part mattered, because doubt creates cracks, and cracks spread. You never asked, I replied. The table went quiet. Not completely, but enough. Because truth has a way of disrupting rhythm. Dinner ended shortly after. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just unfinished. That is how tension works. It does not always explode. Sometimes it lingers, waits, builds. The next morning was different, quiet, still, controlled, until it was not. I woke up early. As usual, routine is important, especially when everything else is unpredictable. By the time I walked into the living room, the house was already tense. My father-in-law stood near the window, phone in hand, his expression tight. My mother-in-law was pacing. My husband stood in the center of the room, reading something over and over again. What happened? I asked. No one answered immediately. That told me everything. Then my husband looked up. This is not funny, he said. I am not joking, I replied. He held up the document. What is this? I walked closer, looked at it briefly, then back at him. That, I said, is a transfer notice. His expression hardened. For what? I held his gaze. For ownership? Silence. Immediate. Heavy. My father-in-law stepped forward. Ownership of what? I paused. Not for effect. For clarity. Everything, I said. That was the moment. The exact moment the entire structure of their understanding began to collapse. This house, I continued. The company. The assets. All of it. Transferred. Finalized. Documented. That is not possible, my mother-in-law said. Her voice was sharper now, less controlled. It is, I replied. It has been for a while. My husband stared at me. Not angry. Not yet. Confused. Trying to reconstruct reality in real time. Why? He asked. That was the right question. Finally, because, I said calmly, I built it. The room went completely still. No movement. No sound. Just processing. Layer by layer. Understanding takes time, especially when it destroys assumptions. For years, I continued, I have been operating behind the scenes. Investments, partnerships, acquisitions. I watched their faces carefully. Shock, disbelief, recognition, fear. I did not need visibility, I said. I needed control. My father-in-law shook his head. No, he said. That is not how this works. But it was. And now he knew. You thought I had nothing, I said, because you could not see it. And on. And I turned slightly toward my husband. And you believed them. That part mattered most. Because betrayal is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet agreement. He said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. The documents in his hand were real, verifiable, unavoidable. You called me worthless, I said. Not accusing, not emotional, just stating. And yet, I added, everything you value was built by me. The weight of that truth settled slowly, but completely. My mother-in-law sat down, hard, like her legs could not support the shift. This is manipulation, she said. It was not. It was exposure, and exposure feels like attack when you are not ready for it. I stepped back slightly, giving them space, because truth does not need to crowd. It only needs to exist. For a long time, I said, I allowed you to define me. A pause. That was my mistake. My husband finally spoke again. You should have told me. Maybe. But that was not the real issue. You should have asked, I replied. Silence again. But this time, it was different. Not tense. Not aggressive. Empty. Because the old structure was gone, and nothing had replaced it yet. I picked up my bag. Calm. Steady. Finished. Where are you going? He asked. I looked at him. Really looked. For the first time in a long time. Forward, I said. And that was enough. I walked to the door, opened it, stepped outside. The air felt different, clearer, lighter. Not because they finally understood me, but because I no longer needed them to. And that is the real shift. Not proving your value, but removing access to it.